Listen to that roar. Tens of thousands of fans, bathed in millions of watts of floodlights, watching modern gladiators clash on manicured grass. You're looking at the beating heart of Indian cricket. The scoreboard glowing in the night belongs to Eden Gardens, Kolkata's undisputed temple of the sport. But if you assume the story of cricket in this city began when they poured the concrete for these stands, you'd be missing the best part of the tale. Organized matches were already a fixture of Kolkata life, long before anyone ever drafted a blueprint for a grand arena. Understanding this venue requires looking back before the stadium was even conceived, to an aristocratic name, a landscape that grew into a fortress, and a match played a century before the first brick was laid. Let's start with the words themselves, Eden Gardens. It is a bizarrely delicate name for a massive, imposing sports fortress. It sounds more like a place to look at rare orchids than hit sixes. The name actually belongs to British aristocracy, specifically Emily and Fanny Eden, the sisters of Lord Auckland, who served as Governor-General of India in the 1830s. The sisters designed a sprawling, highly exclusive recreational park along the Hooghly River. It was a private retreat for the colonial elite to stroll and socialize, and they stamped their family name on the gate. Over the following decades, the gates opened wider. The manicured lawns transitioned from an aristocratic hideaway into a public gathering space for residents of Calcutta. So the most famous cricket ground in Asia isn't named after a legendary bowler or batsman. The stadium simply swallowed the land and kept the aristocratic title of the park it paved over. Which brings us to the physical dirt. How do you get from elite walking paths to a professional cricket pitch? Look at this 19th century survey. We see expansive, flat tracts of open grass surrounding a central pond and domed structures. Those unbroken stretches were perfect for informal play. Early clubs began laying down temporary pitches right there on the grass. There were no grandstands, no turnstiles, just players marking out boundaries for the afternoon. The turning point was sheer human volume. As the local appetite for the sport exploded in the early 1900s, informal ropes couldn't hold back the thousands of spectators. They needed dedicated seating and rigid perimeters. Eden Gardens was never conceived as a master-planned mega stadium. It mutated organically from a weekend park pitch into a concrete fortress simply because it had to contain its own rapidly multiplying audience. But if we keep walking backward in time, past the concrete, past the Eden sisters, we hit the real anomaly. This is Calcutta long before the polish of manicured outfields. It was a dense, dusty commercial hub, packed with horse-drawn carriages and intense mercantile trading. And right here in the records, 50 years before the Eden family even arrived, we hit the year 1780, the earliest documented instance of cricket being played in the city. The men holding the bats weren't professional athletes. They were British East India Company officials, merchants, and off-duty soldiers looking to kill time. They played highly informal, chaotic matches on rough, undeveloped patches of scrubland, wherever they could find space between the warehouses and military barracks. Cricket served as a psychological anchor for these men, a way to import a familiar piece of home onto foreign soil to sustain them thousands of miles away from England. Fast forward to the 20th century, and that imported pastime had been thoroughly adopted by the local public. The crowds swelled into the tens of thousands, transforming the matches into massive civic events. Look at the stadium through that lens. It operates less like a piece of modern architecture and more like a geological formation, built layer by literal layer over centuries of continuous play. The multi-million-dollar franchise operations under these massive floodlights today are standing directly on the geographical and cultural foundations poured by those very first rough-and-tumble games. The name Eden Gardens no longer evokes two aristocratic sisters taking a quiet afternoon stroll. The phrase has been completely rewritten by the people who filled the stands, coming to mean the very pulse of global cricket. Tonight, as millions tune in, they witness the latest chapter of a living monument, where the history of 1780 continues to play out on modern grass.